Hello there, and welcome to my latest review for the King's Square Reviews. This recap covers episode 4 of Daredevil Born Again, titled Sic Semper Systema. This is going to be a spoiler-heavy critique, so if you haven't watched the episode, please stop listening to me and go watch it, then come back and hear my take on the episode. The title of the episode is revealing. Sic Semper Systema is a modification of the phrase Sic Semper Tyrannis, which means thus always to tyrants. The original phrase is attributed to Brutus, one of the lead conspirators in the death of Julius Caesar. It was also attributed to John Wilkes Booth and his assassination of President Lincoln after the Civil War ended. The episode's title roughly means thus always to the system. The point made during the course of the episode is that the system Matt has devoted himself to over the past year since Foggy's death is crippled and incapable of actually doing what it's supposed to do. There are a few examples of that idea presented in the episode from different characters. We get our first look at Muse in this episode, and to say this new villain is creepy is an understatement. Clad in white with only his eyes visible, Muse silently makes his way through Manhattan, claiming victims while creating his stunning artwork on buildings. It's only toward the end of the episode that we learn the truth. Muse is kidnapping citizens and draining them of their blood to use in his paints. It's a truly morbid way to create art, one that violates the idea that art is meant to uplift and inspire. Muse's rampage is an example of systemic failure, particularly in the fact that no one has noticed the people who have gone missing to fuel this psychopath's art projects. Most likely, Muse is targeting those who society won't easily miss, which is some truth in television since many serial killers target the indigent population since society generally doesn't care about them. Before getting further into the review, make sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons below. Hit that bell icon to get notified when new posts are dropped. I also have a Patreon set up to provide early access to videos like this, as well as exclusives only available on Patreon. The link for my Patreon is in the description below. Thanks for your indulgence. Let's get on with the episode commentary. The previous episode ended with the murder of Hector Ayala, aka the White Tiger. The senseless murder was committed by someone from the police department, one of the copycats who have taken to wearing Punisher tattoos in solidarity. Angela, Hector's niece, steps into the picture in this episode, making her way to the city morgue to see her uncle. Murdoch intercepts her, turning over Hector's belongings, including his mystical amulet, to Angela. To her credit, Angela knows that someone from the NYPD is behind her uncle's death, but that's a long way from proving it. Angela wants justice for her uncle's death, but deep down, she has zero faith the system will give her that. Another example that hits home for Matt is Leroy Bradford, a freebie case McDuffie asks Murdoch to take while revealing their law firm is starting to face financial difficulties. Leroy was arrested for a petty theft of some caramel corn, which we see the NYPD officers eating as they wait for a car to arrive to take Leroy to holding. Leroy is standoffish and, to be fair, a bit of a dick to Murdoch, insisting that he will only accept probation for this crime. Unfortunately, Leroy has a long list of prior crimes, but no violent offenses. Matt manages to get a member of the DA's office to agree to 10 days in jail rather than the original 20 days that Leroy would have been charged. Matt sees this as a victory given Leroy's record of prior offenses, but Leroy doesn't see it that way at all. Instead, Leroy provides a harsh takedown of the justice system and the city government as a whole. The reason Leroy insisted on getting only probation is that the last time he had an extended stay in jail, he missed an appointment for SSI and his benefits were cut off. This meant that once he got out of jail, he had no ability to meet his basic needs. He became homeless, having to eat discarded food out of dumpsters, and in desperation, he stole caramel corn because he wanted something that was tasty. Leroy even points out that the city is willing to spend 5 times more to jail him for 10 days than it's willing to spend to feed him or help him with housing. All Matt can do is sit in his chair and listen as Leroy lays out his truth, making Matt's celebration of getting only 10 days in jail feel increasingly hollow and unjust. On the flip side, we have Wilson Fisk, a man who we have seen so far is increasingly using his position as mayor to hide his ulterior motives. Fisk claims to be above the baser instincts of his previous life as the kingpin, but as we've seen, he isn't as far above such things as he lets on. As Fisk tries to unveil his plans to revitalize the Red Hook ports, Sheila, his chief of staff, reminds him of the numerous hoops he'll have to jump through just to get the ball rolling. The system that he now leads as mayor props up his ambitions, but there are moments where it breaks down for him. Daniel's ill-advised bragging to impress B.B. Urich leads to a scathing article condemning Fisk's attempt to bypass labor contracts with the city's sanitation department. It's the reveal of Adam's fate that truly shows Fisk has not gone far enough away from his violent past. During another therapy session with Dr. Glenn, Fisk states that he had a conversation with Adam and nothing more. Both Dr. Glenn and Vanessa are skeptical of this, prompting Dr. Glenn to ask if Vanessa feels safe with her husband. We soon learn that Adam is being kept captive by Fisk in a basement somewhere in the city. The reason for Fisk's damaged knuckles now becomes apparent to us as the audience. The last thing I want to touch on for this episode recap, though, is my favorite scene up to this point in the show. The lead up for it first occurs during Matt's work with Leroy earlier in the episode. Matt has a chance to confront Powell, the rogue cop from Hector's trial. We soon learn that Powell was not directly responsible for Hector's death, indicating that Powell does have some intelligence. After visiting the scene of Hector's death, Matt finds the shell casing for the bullet. Matt wanders New York seemingly aimlessly until he enters a tenement building and descends below street level. Daredevil is descending into the hellish bowels of the city in a way. There we find Frank Castle, the Punisher. I love John Bernthal's take on Frank Castle. There's a fine line for this character to walk from being irredeemable, and Bernthal has found that place in his portrayal. Frank, at first, claims zero responsibility for the cops using his logo to commit murder, but the scene shifts into a stark, emotional moment between these two men. We get a chance to see what drives both Frank and Matt to do what they do and why they are on opposite sides so often. Grief drives both men, and their grief takes the form of a voice of a lost loved one. For Frank, it's the voice of his son encouraging him to kill the villains of the world. For Matt, it's Foggy's voice telling him to have faith in the system and rise above his violent urges. Frank tells Matt that he thinks Murdoch went to him not for help, but for permission to unleash the devil and seek retribution for Hector Ayala. There's some truth to that, but I think the other side of it is that Matt was hoping Frank would shoulder the burden of going after the cops who killed Ayala. If Frank did that, Matt would be able to wash his hands of the situation after a fashion and go back to working within the system. Matt ultimately wants to avoid giving in to his darker impulses, but we know that that is a losing battle, and so does Frank. Like the diner scene in the first episode, this is a powerful scene between two amazing actors, and I loved every second of it. It's rare that I encounter a show without a weak link 4 episodes in, but Daredevil Born Again has managed to pull that off. Sic Semper Systema doesn't have any big fights or dramatic reveals. Instead, we get an examination of why, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, people like Matt Murdock and Hector Ayala exist and are frankly necessary. I'm hoping we get to see more of Bernthal's Frank Castle this season, but even if we don't, the scene between Bernthal and Charlie Cox was more than enough for me. As always, I hope you've enjoyed this recap. If you have, please hit that like and subscribe button and consider signing up for my Patreon to show your support.